Let's face it, a lot of modern metal guitars have been sounding generic and boring. This is a shame for me because I never saw myself turning into one of those guys who long for the music of bygone eras without any hope for the quality of new music. Thankfully, this can be fixed because there seems to be a common ingredient that's hiding in the modern metal guitarist's playbook. That ingredient, of course, is contrast. In this lesson, I'm going to tell you all about how to use this wonderful musical device for total brutality. And if you like this metal stuff, you'll love my Elite Tones cheat sheet. It's just a free gift I want you to take away from this because it shows you how to dial in killer amp tones. It even gives you links to some of my favorite free amp sims that I use all the time, so you can get started playing with those right away and get going with some new heavy sounds. I put a link for that below in the description, so you can just click that and check it out, or you can also head to zacksharguitar.com and download this awesome free resource. So now, grab your axe, take a seat, and let's get ready to rock. So the first way we can make our riff sound heavier and more interesting to our listeners by using contrast is to use contrast when it comes to pitch. So there's a ton of different ways you can do this. For example, you can start in the higher register and descend your way somehow to the lower, heavier sounding notes. And when you do this, it sounds like you're adding range to the guitar by stretching the lower end so that way it descends deeper into the sonic abyss. And another way to do this, a classic way to do this when you're using contrast when it comes to pitch, is to throw some harmonics in the mix. Any kind of harmonic will do, but I tend to favor pinch harmonics because you can really make them squeal. In any way you choose to use contrast when it comes to pitch, the whole purpose is to have a reference point to put against the lower notes so that they sound even lower and heavier. So when you have something higher that's rubbing against those notes, it makes them, like I said, sound lower and heavier. So here's what each of those examples I mentioned when it comes to using contrast with pitch sounds like in context. Another way you can use contrast to make your riffs sound more interesting and even heavier to your listeners is to use contrast with your tempo. So that simply means using some faster parts in conjunction with some slower parts. And when it comes to the metal side of things, speed is often associated with excitement and even aggression. And then you pair that with something that's slower, it just hits harder in a way because it's more pummeling and crushing, and it gives some breathing room to your song. And you'll notice this recurring idea that the contrast is used to emphasize something to make it seem more like what it is than when you don't have anything else to reference it to. So just like with pitch, when it comes to tempo, when you have a slower part combined with a faster part, breaking up the faster parts with slower parts can make the faster part sound faster and the slower part sound slower. One great way to do this if you're working with something at a given tempo is to just drop it to halftime. This can apply with the same riff, and usually the drummer and the other members of the band can go a long way in putting the legwork into this. But that can occur if you're just playing the same riff, or in the example I'm about to show you, you can change the tempo down to halftime when you're going from one riff or one section of a song to another. Here's what that sounds like in context. And what is probably the most complicated way you can use contrast when it comes to heavy guitar writing is to use contrast with the mood you're going for in your song. If it's just a constant mood the whole time, especially if you have a whole catalog that's just the same mood time and time again, it can get really exhausting. And so the way I look at this is by looking at mood in music as being on sort of a spectrum ranging from brighter moods to darker moods. And it definitely helps to have a lot of knowledge of intervals, especially how they tie into chord structures, scales, and modes, and that type of thing. That knowledge can help a lot with this type of material and being very intentional with your approach to writing. And again, here we go with the whole recurring formula with this, because incorporating lighter elements into a song that's predominantly constructed of darker ones can give the listener a little time to breathe, and then when you introduce the darker stuff, it just hits way harder. For example, you can have a mode like the Dorian mode used, which, it's not the brightest sounding mode, it's not the darkest sounding mode, but when you throw in the relative Phrygian mode, well, that just makes things sound a lot darker. When you have the Dorian mode in contrast to the Phrygian mode, it's almost like a brighter sounding scale. So here's what that type of thing sounds like in context. So don't get caught in the trap of just playing straight up binary riffs with maybe an occasional lick thrown in, because there's so much more we can do with our instruments to evoke all facets of the metal realm, and it all comes down to contrast. After a while, too much of something can get pretty stale, and breaking your music up with different pitches, tempos, and moods can go a long way to making sure that your listeners are interested and engaged. And don't forget, if you like this material with all the heavy guitar stuff, you'll love my Elite Tones cheat sheet. It's my free gift to you that shows you how to dial in killer amp tones. And it even gives you some links to a few of my favorite free amp sims that I use all the time, so you can get started playing with those right away. Just click the link for that I put in the description, or you can go to ZachSharGuitar.com and download that free tool there. I'm Zach with Zach Shar Guitar. Thank you so much for watching, and God bless.